Hello, Right Brain listeners. I just want to take a second to talk about the Brain Driver. This is a transcranial stimulation device. And I know I say that I've been working on myself lately. Like I stopped drinking. I wear my red light lenses at night. But I also am using this at night. So I just want to show you how it works a little bit because it's been very helpful for me. So the red side goes on the side that you're trying to stimulate, which would be my left brain. And then the right side goes on the side that you're just kind of trying to keep the same and not stimulate. And then you put it under here, put this on, put these on your brain, and then you can just chill. You can watch Harry Potter. It's fall. You can do whatever the hell you want. You can walk around with it, make it a fashion statement. Everyone in my family uses these, and a lot of my dad's patients use them, and you can find them at thebraindriver.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Right Brain podcast. Today we have my friend Danae Hays here.
Hi, guys.
She is a comedian and comedy. Holy shit. Let me try this again.
Country comedy singer.
You knew it was going to be hard for me.
I knew it.
She is a country comedy singer. I actually love her songs. Got a little sneak peek of a new one on a boat recently, and I was cracking up. So yeah, there's basically nothing she can't do. And
No, I didn't say that.
her tour, the first time tour, is kicking off in the next week. So
Well, good to be
check
here.
it out. Good to have you
What
here.
a beautiful intro. Thank you so much, Ellis. I love you
tried.
so much.
Okay, Danae. So normally we start off by kind of asking you what you were like as a kid,
Yeah.
what you were like in school.
Well, we were just before we started filming. You were just talking about, your OCD and as a young child and everything, and it just sounded so familiar with Ellis and her growing up as a child. So, not surprised because as we talked about, it also goes with your ability and your talent. And so, yeah, let's start there. Let's start with your origin story in Alabama. Is that where you grew up?
That's it. Yeah, I grew up in a little town. It was like 1,200 people. I was either the fifth or sixth generation of my family to grow up there. So when we are born in Morris, Alabama, we live until we die there. I mean, I think I was one of the first people in my family to actually move out.
Well, first of all, coming from New York and everything, there's so many people. Anybody that actually knows the number of their town, like how many people,
Yeah, right?
off the bat.
I know.
When anybody starts off going, yeah, there's 1,200 people in my town, it's like, I grew up somewhere, I have no idea. It's like, I don't know, 100,000 maybe,
Yeah.
but nobody so it's like right from the bat, we know that, all right, you're from a small town.
Oh, yeah.
There's
There's
the number of people.
There's like five families there. You got the Hayses, the Bartletts, the Hills, the Fawcett's, and then you got to know which family's which because you don't want to date your cousin. So you got to keep tabs on
Eddie
who's
Hatfield
who.
and McCoy's there, like fighting with one another.
Oh yeah, plenty of that. Actually, a lot of within the family, but we won't get into that today. But no, I was 10 years old, and I was taken to a therapist originally for my obsessive-compulsive disorder. And it was just one of those things where I physically could not get through the day without counting how many steps I was taking. Did I lock the door? Did I step with as much weight on my right foot as I did my left foot? And if I didn't, I would hop back and do it again, right, left. Mm-hmm. I was going down to my parents' bedroom every single night, like 20 times, telling them, I love y'all. Hey, I love y'all. Please don't die in your sleep. I love y'all. And I would say things like in a really joking manner, and I would try to say it in a joking manner to where they thought I wasn't being serious, but I had to say what I needed to say. And then it got to the point where I started using the term disregard that. And so I would say something and then I would use disregard that. And so I was using disregard that like 40 or 50 times a day. And it was just, I'm sure like when we were in the grocery store and it'd be me and my dad and I would say something, hey, disregard that. I'm sure the people that were on the aisle were like, what the hell's wrong with this kid? And how does this 10but know the term disregard that,
Right.
But I had
very elegant OCD that
disregard
you had.
that. Yeah, I was classy. But it was one of those things where I just learned to live with it. And it was just infuriating in my mind because like my parents would go on vacation and I would stay with my grandmother and I would need to call them like 10 times in a matter of an hour.
So is that because we talk about a right brain, left brain versus different types of OCD? And do you feel like, first of all, when did it first start, do you think? Because you were diagnosed at 10. It sounds like it was going on for a while before that. Like, what's your earliest memory of those thoughts? And then secondly, was your OCD driven by that fear? Like, what was the initiator of that, would you say?
I think I first started having thoughts around seven or eight. Because I can remember which house we lived in because we were moving constantly because my parents were in real estate. And I can remember this particular house and how annoyed I was at how many stairs were in the house because I had to count them a million times. And I believe that was around the age of 8.
So did it start with that counting, or like, why were you counting? Were you counting because it like you couldn't help it, or were you counting because it helped something, like something bad wouldn't happen if you did that?
So around this time was the first time I had a thought of, and we'll get deep here, but it was the first time I'd had an intrusive thought that like I like girls. And I didn't know what the word gay meant, but I knew that everybody in my class that were girls always would be like, Tyler's so cute. And I'd be like, but no, Cassidy's so cute. And I was the only one that thought those feelings. And so I went home and I told my mom, and she gave me a lot of pushback on that, just because of our culture and where we grew up. Like, I didn't know a single gay person. And I just kept reiterating those feelings to my mom and to my parents. And I would get pushback on how that was wrong and those weren't normal or natural feelings. And I think because I was so confused on not being able to control that feeling, I started controlling everything else in my life because I would talk about it and nobody would help soothe those feelings. And I just felt really weird. Like, I felt like there was something wrong with me.
Did it trigger like shame and guilt in that?
100%.
So it was, what initiated was you had thoughts about girls, and then you reiterated that, and in some way you felt like you got judgment back.
Oh, yeah.
Like big time judgment. Even as a young kid, you felt that. And then that triggered this real shame and guilt.
And anxiety.
And to calm the anxiety, you had to start trying to control things, and that's where the OCD, or that form of OCD, came from.
Yeah, because like now if I ever have like a really bad anxiety attack, I'll go clean my house. But when you're 8, you're not cleaning the house. So I did everything I could to keep my mind busy. And I think the way that I chose to do that, or it just stumbled into my lap, was counting, obsessive thoughts, fearful thoughts. I'd like really just obsess over my parents dying on their motorcycle. And I would like sit with that for 4 or 5 days. They're going to die.
I'm glad I never had a motorcycle.
Yeah, no, yeah, Ellis, be happy your dad never had a motorcycle. It was hell. Okay.
It's funny because you're saying like the disregard that thing, and I have something. My OCD when I was a kid was like very outward. Now I try to have social skills and keep it on the inside of my brain. But like I would have to do crazy things all the time to like avoid him dying. But I now still on a daily basis, like if I have a thought that pops up that I don't want to have, like if I'm like, oh, I hope this happens to that person. And I'm like, no, I don't. Why did I have that thought? And then it's like goes on. And then I have to say like, no jinxing, no jinxing. And I have to say that over and over again, which I don't think I've ever said out loud.
Disregard.
Yeah. So it's like, I have to like cancel it out. And then like, I feel like it'll happen to me sometimes when I'm in the middle of like talking to somebody and I'll just like go blank and that'll be going on in my mind.
Yes.
But like, I have to cancel it out so that like, I don't know.
No, literally
that doesn't happen.
I had like this weird OCD situation that was happening this past week, and I'd be in the middle of a conversation with somebody and I thought I had put it to bed for the day because now I'm hanging out with friends, and then it crept back into my mind and I'm looking at the person and I realize my eyes are hollowed out and they know that I'm not paying attention. And I'm a very intentional person. Like I thrive on making sure when I'm with people they know that they're being heard and that like we're there together in that moment. And when it happened, I was just like, oh my God, how long have I been thinking about this? Like, how long have my eyes looked like I'm zoned out? And I would have to like snap back into it. But it's less of the physical stuff, less counting, less doing stuff like that. Now it's more like taps and stuff.
But the anxiety feeling, and do you still struggle with the feelings of like shame and guilt and that type of thing? Or have you been able to manage that better?
When it comes to my sexuality, yes. But when it comes to having like an obsessive outbreak and it like happens for like 3 or 4 days on end, then I have a lot of shame that I'm taking up too much space in the people's lives that care about me, that are trying to help me through that. Because it is one of those things where you feel very misunderstood because it's invisible, you know? And you see people that have like a really successful life, but you don't know that they're also dealing with OCD on the back end. So you feel really misunderstood. You're like, I have this wonderful life, this wonderful career, but yet I get stuck on certain thoughts for days at a time. And I feel a lot of shame that I have to call my dad 15 times in 3 days because he's the only one that knows that same version that I was as I was 10. So he really understands me. And then I feel a lot of shame that I've taken too much space up in my dad's life for him to help me get through that.
Yeah.
What's the other side of this is, again, that, we always talk about, why is this here? And part of it also goes along with your gift and what gives you the great life, that ability that you have that has allowed you to create this career that you have, also is what creates the OCD.
Right.
And so they go together. So talk about your life from the career standpoint, meaning from your creative comedy, music, like when did that start early and how did that develop?
I think ever since I was a little kid, like same ages, 6, 7, 8.
You always been funny?
Yeah, I mean, we had a roller rink in our hometown and it was really small. And I can just remember like when I was 7 or 8 years old, I would literally gather a crowd at the roller rink to listen to me tell a funny joke or do a funny impression of like a teacher, and I'd have like 10 kids there, holding court, and I'd be cracking them up. And I'm like, oh, this is so addicting. Like, I want to do this forever. And anytime like a mom or a dad would come up to my parents and say, you're raising a comedian, don't you? I'd be like, oh, they think I'm funny enough to be a comedian. So it was always the one thing that I just loved. I was obsessed with watching comedy. And then when I was around 11, my dad bought me an old school handy cam, a camcorder. And he was like, you can film whatever you want on this. You just can't be naked when you do it. And so I filmed like the craziest sketches and I was playing all the different characters and then I would edit it all together. And this was like right as YouTube was starting to come around. And I never uploaded any of it, thank God, because I'd probably be canceled today. But I'd burn them on DVDs. And then on Saturday nights, because I always wanted to be on Saturday Night Live, I'd make my parents sit in the living room and I'd pop the DVD in and they'd watch all my character work and all my sketches. And so I knew it at a young kid.
Yeah, that's amazing.
As a young kid, I always I have so much joy when I'm making somebody laugh.
You manifested all of that. You were playing all those characters when you were a kid, and now that's like literally what you do. Wow, I didn't realize that.
Again, that's really a unique level of talent and passion, but that's also not coincidental when all of the OCD stuff started. So where we go to is the other side of the coin. Did you struggle in school at all? Did you have any issues with reading or with math or spelling?
Horrible at math.
Me too.
I'm talking about like once I got to college, they had to place me in remediation math, which isn't even a college credit because they were like, we have to get you primed and ready to take a college course. But no, when I was in high school, I was an AB student, really good at writing. Writing was like the thing that I just gravitate towards. Did not understand chemistry at all. I don't even know, I couldn't even tell you a single thing I learned in chemistry. No. I cheated on every test I could possibly cheat on. I was great at creating the cheating system, We would have to sit across from each other and I was like, all right, look, whichever question we need help on, we're going to put that down on the table. So if it's question number 4, we're going to put 4 fingers down. We have A, B, C, and D to choose from. I'm going to look at you. Don't look at me because I'm not going to know the answer. And when I look at you before, if you give me 1 knock, that's A. 2's B, 3's C. So I was constantly cheating chemistry.
Wow, that's pretty. But that's also brilliant. You developed this incredible system that I've never heard of before. That's amazing. That's very funny. How did you not laugh during that?
Oh, I was the whole time. The teacher would walk over and I'd be like, I'm sorry. I just don't even know what I'm doing.
Oh, that's funny.
But no, I was a hard worker.
Yeah.
I don't claim to be very book smart. I feel like I have a lot of common sense and I know how to navigate life and, get the most out of it. But when it comes to being book smart, you don't want to know my ACT score. Okay. Like I just worked hard. Like nobody's going to be like, Danae was brilliant. They're going to be like, damn, she was a hard worker.
Well, it's funny that, just a lot of the things you're saying right now are just reminding me of myself, so it's actually kind of healing.
It's such an overlap, actually. Yes,
I knew we had a special bond.
Yes, me too. But he was like asking about the guilt and shame thing before, also because a lot of like right brain people, that's something that you struggle with. Just like in general, it's and it's something that I struggle with all the time because I guess you like overthink all of these things. But I was wondering because you were saying like at a young age that you started performing and everything and like loved the attention, which I also did. But then I also had like this like moment after that I still struggle with. So I was wondering if you do too on stage where like I feel like if I don't know, was really out there and like entertaining people and everything, that I kind of have this crash after sometimes. And I feel like all of these feelings of guilt and shame and like I was too much I don't know if you deal with any of that.
When it comes to my career, not so much. Like when it comes to the act of entertaining, not so much. I mean, there's definitely days where I'm like, was that too over the top? But for the most part, in my career, I feel very settled into it. But when it comes to like social media, where you're not getting to be in the room with people and see what their actual reaction is to the content you're putting out, I struggle with that. I go through seasons of that. There's some seasons where I'm like, oh, I'm on top of the world. I have so much confidence in everything that I'm doing. And then there's other seasons where I hit post and I'm like, am I too much?
Yeah.
Like, am I over the top? Do people like me? And it's one of those things where it's like a monkey on my back that I can't shake. And the only way that I can personally get myself out of that, and it used to go on for like weeks at a time, and now I've like narrowed that span down to like a couple of days, is by thinking through it logically. I'm a very logical thinker. Like whenever I get myself into a situation, I have to be able to dig myself out through logic. And so I'll ask myself questions like, did what you post bring you joy? And if I'm like, yes, then I'll say, well, if you're doing things that you love, isn't that the only thing that matters? And then I'll be like, yes. And then I'll say, well, what's the worst thing that can happen if somebody thinks you're just too over the top? Well, I guess they unfollow me. And then really quickly, I'm able to get the train back on the tracks. Whereas in the past, it was like, oh my God, they think I'm too much. Okay, let me change completely the type of content that I do because I don't want to be too much, So I've been able to shorten that. But yeah, there's times where like I'll get stuck for 2 days and I'm just like, I freaking hate what I do. And then I'm like, no, Danae, think about this logically. You love what you do. You just are a chronic people pleaser and you want everybody to like you.
Right.
And I'm in a business to where I'm never going to have 100%. And that sucks sometimes because I genuinely think that what I'm doing is for the right reasons and it's to bring joy to people. And that almost makes it worse when they don't like you.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. When you talk about being logical, that's your left brain, right? So using logic, using reasoning, like kind of separating from emotions and being able to step back and look at things and analyze it. So you're engaging your left brain, which is what calms down your right and calms down that anxiety and gives you more of a sense of, reality.
Yeah.
And you're able to do this. So you found strategies on your own that help you with that. And it's, it's part of but you don't want to lose that also, because that's where all your creativity and your comedy and everything come from.
I feel like sometimes, and I'd love to hear y'all's take on this, but sometimes I feel like there's a character, like I'm the entertainer. So that's my character. Even when I go by Danae Hays, there's still this aspect of it's a character I'm playing, because I have to get myself into this very right brain, creative, artistic, balls to the wall character. But then who I am at my core when I'm in private or with my friends and family, I'm a very calm, logical person with a ton of empathy that enjoys a very calm space. And so sometimes I can get a little jaded because I'm like, are there two people living inside of me?
Yeah.
You know, it can get really confusing. And I had always just thought, well, I have both, and I know I do, but sometimes because now my life is so polarizing with being in front of so many people, that there are times where I'm like, God, I really do feel like I'm two people right now. Like it's wild. Like when I go on a date with my girlfriend, Jen.
Woo, we love Jen.
We love Jen. And I'm like, I'm so calm when I'm with her because Jenergy.
Jenergy.
She brings out that calm Jenergy. And I'm just like, man, like to my core, this is who I am. But on a Friday night, I want to get buck wild and make people laugh and look like a raging redneck.
Yeah.
You know? But somehow they all live within the same body.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one of my favorite documentaries that I ever watched was about Robin Williams, because he's one of my favorite comedians ever.
Too.
And his
crazy.
wife talked about, because he could play a million characters and he was so entertaining, but his wife talked about when he would come home, he'd like would be very calm and needed to just like chill and kind of keep to himself. And I don't know. I mean, I can relate to that with just like getting on stage and music, because like before I get on, I'm like, okay, there's no turning back now. Like put it on, whatever. But then I'll get off and I need to just kind of like, I don't know, because you're also putting so much of yourself out there.
Right.
And then on top of that, you're reading everybody's emotions and you're taking in all of these things. And I don't know, it's a lot. Like you need time to recover.
Yeah. Because I do you find yourself like this as well, Ellis? Like, do you really, like, can you sit down at a table, like say we're eating dinner with like 5 of our friends. I don't know if God just gave me a superpower, if this is normal. We all feel this way. But like, when I'm sitting there with 5 people and somebody's hurting, but they haven't disclosed that they're hurting, I can feel that so deeply.
Yes.
And then I'll acknowledge it, and it'll shock them that I'm bringing it up because they've tried to hide it. But I can just feel energy on like such a deep level that I am exhausted after my shows because of the energy, whether it be good or bad. Like I just feel energy so deeply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
the
tough
right
brain
for a young kid, because you probably even as a young girl were feeling that, and it's overwhelming. You know what I mean? You have so much emotion coming to you, and you don't know any different because you've been that way since you were born. You were born with this ability,
Yeah,
and that's where you get such, and that drives a lot of those feelings of anxiety that you don't know why they're there, and then that can generate a sense of like spidey sense, like there's something dangerous, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's tough to manage, but it must really be like, because the thing that we see all the time, a theme, is that you have this talent and you want to share it and you love doing that. But at the same token, you're really open, especially with comedy, because it's such an immediate, like if people don't laugh, that's got to be horrible for you. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it never happens.
Well,
but
there was a couple of times when I was writing my first hour, because you write like 100 jokes or 100 punchlines, and then you end up cutting it down to 30 for the actual hour. So you've got 70 jokes that didn't make the cut for a reason. Yeah. There was a time when I was first starting and they didn't laugh. I was like, all right, let's get to the next one. But then you're holding on to that on the next joke and you don't deliver it the way you should,
right,
because you're afraid of fear and failure. So it's gotten a lot easier. When they don't laugh now, I'll be like, all right, well, F that, let's move on to the next one. And then you deliver the next one with confidence.
That's so badass. I think comedy is by far the hardest thing. And I also just think, because we talk about this stuff all the time, that like comedians are like the most right brain people ever, because they're so aware of what's going to make people laugh in these moments and what people find funny and the nuances of everything. So it's like, you are such a hypersensitive person that you can read all of those things. And then on top of that, you're putting yourself out there. Just, I don't know. It's like, I think it's the most impressive thing.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you find it impressive, because it is so annoying that I pick up on everything. And I have since I was a kid. Like you asked, when did I know I was funny? I was 10 years old when I was watching the way my Aunt Tammy smoked her cigarette, because I knew I wanted to create a character that reminded me of my Aunt Tammy. And I'm watching the way she keeps her thumb up and brings it to the left side of her mouth. Whereas like, what 10-year-old's watching that, you know?
Right,
And I'm watching the way she talks with her hands when she's telling a story. And I just pick up on everything. I can't help it, because I just love finding little things that people are doing that I can morph into this character or morph in to this, you know?
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of when you were 10, because you said when you were 10, like that's when you got diagnosed with OCD and everything. And I know recently you told me that you had like a concussion when you were 11.
Yeah.
Right? And did that play into how did you feel after that?
So I think now I've had 3 grade 3 concussions and maybe 5 or 6 total. But the first one was, I was either 11 or I was 12, but we were riding the inner tube behind the boat. My dad was pulling me, and he was slinging us outside the wake, and it was glassy water, so we were flying. And he was looking over his shoulder and didn't see that a boat had went by and caused another wake. And so as we were being slung on that glassy water, we hit that wake, and I knocked heads with the girl in the inner tube with me. And it knocked me unconscious, and I went face down in the water. And I was just face down in the water, and my parents thought I was being funny. And because they didn't know how
That's
bad.
the risk of being a comedian.
Right. They didn't know how bad it was. And so they ended up having to jump in the water and grab me and bring my head up. But that was the first concussion. I didn't notice. I think it's because I was maybe not that self-aware at that age. But where I really started to notice the effects was when I was 17. I was a junior in high school, and I was playing softball. So 5 years later, I guess. And I hit heads. The top of this girl's head hit me in my temple and knocked me out. And I went unconscious and had to be taken to the hospital. That was the first time I realized, oh, this isn't like a one-day event where you go to the hospital, but because there's no bruises, you're fine. I had a headache for a solid month after that one. So I knew something was wrong. And I dealt with just weird headaches periodically throughout the year. I would wake up with a severe headache. I'd go to bed with a severe headache.
Anything else like light sensitivity or nausea or dizziness or anything of that?
None of that. The first week or so, they were like telling me not to read. So I got out of class for that. But mostly just headaches. But I still wasn't sensitive around my head. Like I didn't care if you accidentally elbowed me while you were getting up or you accidentally knocked me with something. I didn't care. I wasn't trying to shield my head. And then exactly 1 year after that one, when I was 18, I was playing softball and a girl's knee hit my jaw and knocked my jaw out of place, and it knocked me unconscious.
God.
Yeah, that one was brutal. So that was 2 massive concussions in 1 year. And that's when I started to realize, oh, my head's so sensitive that even if you tap me with your hand on my head, I'm going to get a minor headache. So then I started becoming extremely protective of my head. When I would notice somebody walking past me and I was sitting at my desk and they had a backpack on, I was afraid they were going to turn at the last minute. So I would move out of the way just in case. And that was my dad took me to a neurologist that year because he was really concerned because that was 2 major concussions in 1 year. They gave me a brain scan, which he made, from the research that he was telling us, he was like, there's not much at the time we can really tell you about your brain. It's this is what he was telling me, it's one of the most understudied parts of our body that we don't know that much about. but from the scan I gave you, everything seems to be looking good. So he was like, just try not to get hit in the head anymore. And then a couple of months later, I went off to the University of Alabama to play college softball for the next 4 years. Luckily, never had another concussion playing softball, but anytime I would dive head first after a ball or into a bag, I would always have a headache for the rest of the day. So yeah, I've had quite a bit of concussions, and I've always been really scared that I have like long-lasting brain damage from that. So I actually went into this brain clinic.
Right, you tell me about
I won't give too many details because I don't want a lawsuit, but I did go to a brain clinic, and it was not the experience I was hoping for. And she told me that she gave me this proprietary brain scan and that she could look at things that other doctors couldn't look at. And the thing she saw was that I suffer from memory loss and the ability to think on my feet and improv. And I was like, okay, well, I have to remember an hour and 15-minute long set, and I can remember the craziest things. Jen, my girlfriend, talks about it all the time. And I can think on my feet and improv like a mofo. So I'm like,
literally your job.
What is going on here?
Yeah.
You know? But like the other patients had been kicked in the forehead by a horse and couldn't formulate a sentence. And so they were in a state of desperation. Like they were at their wits' end. A lot of them were suicidal. And I think they were just grasping at straws trying to find anything that could help them.
Right.
I would be too. I mean, I just had concussions and I went looking for answers. And I felt like I kind of got the wool pulled over my eyes in that instance. But yeah.
So did they have any solution for you? Meaning that, first of all, to say that is, I mean, and I know what you're talking about. There's a difference. First of all, when the one brain scan you talked about was like an MRI, right? Mm-hmm. That was the image. So that's just a picture. And then the other was you had probably like a SPECT scan, right? Like something like that.
Yeah, they had me lay in the machine, which was the MRI machine, I believe. And they had a controller in my hand and they would display an image and then I would have to answer the problem. Mm-hmm. However, on multiple of the questions, the question would flash in front of me and then it would disappear after like half a second. So I couldn't even finish the question. And so it would count that as wrong. And so I got out of the scan and I looked at the nurse and I was like, hey, I think the machine's messed up because there was like multiple questions where it didn't allow me to answer. He was like, yeah. I was like, no, like I came here because I want answers. Let me retake it.
That's what your memory's so
Sorry.
Yeah, but again, that just looking at that brain imaging alone, it's relatively a slow process in your brain. And so there's only limited information you can get without really looking at the person functionally, and even when you're trying to do testing like that. But the bottom line is, did they give you any solution for it? Did they say this is what you need to do?
So there was a lot of like brain games, a lot of hand-eye coordination games, mm-hmm. which were awesome. Like they were very challenging and stimulating. Mm-hmm. But the part that really worried me was they wanted me to go see like I don't know if it was a speech therapist, but it was someone where they would give me, so as soon as I walked in the door, we greeted each other and she gave me 12 words. She just said 12 words. And she goes, I need you to remember these 12 words at the end of this 30-minute session, but we're going to be going over hundreds of words. So at the end of the session, I believe I got 10 out of the 12 words right. And I was like, hello, I can remember things.
Yeah, no, that's pretty
But
good.
to go back to my OCD, I suffered from an OCD, like the worst OCD attack I've ever had in my life. Following, I left that clinic for 3 weeks. I felt like I had a mental disorder. I started developing a stutter because I thought that my speech wasn't good enough. So I started stuttering because I was like, oh, I'm messed up in the head. Like, this is bad. So for 3 weeks, I could not function. I was taking multiple baths a day with like the hottest water I could get because I was trying to like shock my system to get me out of this crazy headspace. I would call my dad on the phone and be like, I have a problem. I can't there's something wrong with me. And my dad was like, baby, there's nothing wrong with you. You weren't doing this before you got there. So it took a lot of work to get through that.
So that's really interesting. What did you do that particular session or those couple of sessions? Because what you're describing, see, this is the whole thing. It's not just about doing this generalized stimulation to the brain. And even though some of those things can be really effective, like hand-eye and doing things like that, if you do it, if there's an imbalance underlying it, you might actually make that worse. And that's what happened, because the right side of the brain is generating the anxiety and the fear and all of that. And the left side of the brain, when the same area on the left side is what governs speech. So your motor ability of speech. So when that is so high, that's where stuttering comes from. Stuttering comes from that aspect of your left brain, which is called Broca's area, or the inferior frontal gyrus on the left. And on the right, that coming up, also that has a relationship to OCD. So whatever they did in that treatment, because they might have generally been stimulating, because your right brain is always so active to begin with, that's, even if it's affecting both sides equally, that side's going to respond more, and it's going to create more of an imbalance. And that's what you went into, was that really severe type of imbalanced state. Did you have any depression with that as well?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So
and I very
depression
rarely,
or joy, and pride comes from that same area on the left side. So that's why, that would also be depression would go along with it, along with like sadness or shame or guilt or all those other things.
yeah, I felt like an idiot.
Yeah.
Like I literally flew myself out there. And then when I came back, it was the most bizarre feeling. I literally felt like somebody else's brain was in my head.
Yeah, that's pretty severe to be able to get it. But that's where we talk about the brain is so dynamic, and that's where we talk about, like, if you're doing things, like if you're doing right brain stuff like crazy, like writing your comedy and doing that and doing that and doing that, you might actually put yourself into that state just because you're working on that. But whatever you did their activities or exercises kind of
they were like stimulating the wrong side of your brain, like trying to balance you out, but instead just,
or not even considering it as a balance, just saying, okay, you have this problem in your brain and let's just make your brain do more work. But in doing that, if you don't understand that the root issue is this imbalance, and you make that imbalance worse, then you're going to make everything worse.
Yeah.
How did you get out of it?
Well, for literally like 3 weeks, I don't know why I thought hot baths were going to work. But it was the only time during the day where I could like actually have some sort of soothing moment. But it got so bad that I was like, I need to go to an OCD specialist. So I found this OCD clinic and started going to this OCD therapist, and it probably reduced it initially, and then it just kind of like felt like a slow decline. And then I started like creating again, and I felt confident again that I still am a normal person and that I'm okay. And so I kind of just had to build it brick by brick back up just through doing things.
So the OCD therapist was like talk therapy?
Yeah.
So talk therapy is more geared towards your left brain by the nature of it being talk therapy. It's not feeling therapy. It's not listening therapy. It's talk therapy. And so that is definitely a more left brain approach. So it sounds like what you did there was probably engage your left brain in that talk, which brings in some logic and some more objective viewpoints where you can kind of separate yourself a little bit and try to look at it without that level of emotion. And so, that's one of the benefits that talk therapy may have in that situation. So.
Yeah, I started feeling normal again because the more I would rationalize it and bring logic in, and like you said, be able to separate myself from it and just look at it from like a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
I started feeling normal.
Right.
And less.
Yeah. So you engage your left brain in doing that. What did they do? I'm just really curious as to what activities you did out there in that clinic that made you kind of go like that, engage that right brain so much that really.
We did a lot of balance work on feet.
Okay.
So I would stand on my left foot with my eyes closed, and I would start wobbling.
Okay.
So, and then we'd do the right
which
foot.
is very right brain, because especially when you're using your left foot for your right brain, and then balance and your primary vestibular center, which is in your right brain and your parietal lobe area. So that's very right brain engaging type of activity.
It was a lot of, that was like the physical therapy part of it. We did.
Did they do your right foot too, or only your left foot?
No, I believe they did both feet.
Okay. Did you have a balance problem?
I don't think so.
No, you felt like your balance was okay?
I felt like it was okay with my eyes closed, I mean, because I don't know
Only
the
so
last
much you
time
can
I
do.
tried to do that with my eyes closed. So I was like, man, I am a little wobbly right now. But then I would open my eyes and I'd stand perfectly fine.
Right.
So I'm like, what's going on here, guys? It's like, hey, we're going to hit you upside the head as hard as we can and try to stay on both feet, okay? Oh, yep. See, you got a problem. Like it felt
With your eyes closed.
Yeah, with your eyes closed. So yeah, there were times where I was second guessing myself because I'm like, I've never tried this with my eyes closed before, and I'm a Division I athlete. Like I had 4 ESPN top 10 plays. I was athletic as shit. Sorry to say that, but I was very athletic.
That's also
So
very right
amazing.
brain, ability, comedy, music, athletics.
So I'm like, here I am after playing my last concussion, and then I played 4 years after my last concussion, and now they're saying that like
You can't make jokes and you can't play sports. I'm like, and you're like, that's literally how I define myself.
And literally, that was when I've never felt that type of depression before. It was awful. But they had me do that. They had me do games where like there was a board of like 100 pieces, and every time a piece would pop up, I'd have to tap it, and they'd like start it with 1, and then it would go to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to remember the sequence of an order.
Sure. Neurosensory integration.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll have to talk to you about where you were doing this, because I probably know these people and they should know, and they probably forgot about the whole right left brain thing and just did generalized vestibular oculomotor rehab, which is not a good thing.
I don't think their intentions are bad. I think
No,
their
of course
intentions
not.
are to absolutely.
No, but I believe me, I know that world and that kind of idea. But that's why what you're describing is that you have to think about this balance component of it.
Yeah.
If you're not, then you might make somebody worse, even if you're doing really good therapies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt super stupid for being there because when we started the clinic, I believe there were maybe like 6 patients, and we're sitting around a table with the doctor, and she was like, all right, everybody, I'd like for you to go around, say your name, where you're from, and why you're here. So I was like the third one to go. The first person was like, and I'm not telling this in a funny manner. This is literally reality and how it happened. She was like, I'm Helga. I'm from Holland, and I am going to kill myself if I don't get help. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, like, holy hell, like that's deep. And then it got to the next person, and he was like, what was the question again? And I'm like, like this is tough to watch.
Yeah.
And it never really got better than that. That was kind of the benchmark. And then it got to me, and I was like, hey everybody, I'm Danae. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I now live in Nashville. I'm a stand-up comedian. At the time I was like, I'm an influencer, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, happy to be here. And I was like, that felt really insensitive. Like, should I have developed a stutter, like, to get through this moment? Like, I felt like I didn't belong there.
Yeah.
And then I think that's also why I left early too, is I felt like what they were doing was maybe too far advanced for where I was. So, but it really, needless to say, it really messed me up. And I was even a little nervous to come on y'all's podcast today because I was afraid. I was like, oh gosh, what if I have another OCD outbreak because of one thing that was triggering from the previous situation,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel great. So y'all haven't said anything that's triggered.
Well, I hope not. And also, I started this podcast because I mean, I struggle with all of the things that you're talking about and always have. And then he obviously treats people for this and has it from like the scientific side, but it's actually been very healing, I think, for both of us to have my friends come on here and kind of like talk about all of these things, because it's like I mean, you're talking about calling your dad 15 times a day. I'll call him and I'll be like, I'm laying on the ground. My chest, I might have to go to the hospital. Also, my rib is broken. And he's like, okay. Like,
Yes.
you know, and it's like things that anything that you say, I'm just trying to make you feel more comfortable, but anything you say is probably something I've already said to an extreme to him before, and what he sees every day. So
I don't think I'm going to have to go home and take a bath after this podcast.
Okay,
I think I'm okay. We'll have to ruminate in a 90-degree bathtub.
Yeah. I had my first concussion when I was 4. I went skiing. They let their 4-year-old go skiing by herself. And
Well, your 2-year-old brother was also skiing at the same time.
so he was better than me. But yeah, I skied straight into my mom's knee and was like, woke up with them carrying me. But yeah, he's always like, you know, if you didn't have that concussion when you were young, there's always like random things throughout my life that he's been like, that's probably why you are the way you are. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, great. Well, I'm glad it added to something.
But again, it's also, you know, you got to put it in the context of your incredible gifts. I mean, when you look back at your life and as a young girl, and as you said, like who at 10 years old was figuring out where the finger is going to go, not just figuring it out because it was your aunt and whatever, but because you wanted to create a character around her. Like that's amazing, right? So even with you, even though you have injuries and whatever, that can, you know, affect things for sure. But the real root of it starts with that there's areas of your brain that are unusually gifted and unusually strong. To play at the level of Division I college sports is rare, right? That all of that is really rare. And so you just have these phenomenal gifts, but that also leads you to certain vulnerabilities, you know? It's like, listen, if you play college sports at a high level, good chance you're going to get a concussion. It's the vulnerability of doing that. If you never played that sport, or if you weren't really that good and played it at a lower level, your chance of getting that concussion is much lower, right? I mean, I played college football. If I didn't play football, I wouldn't have gotten, you know, a concussion. But, you know, it kind of goes along. There's a vulnerability that comes along with the advantage.
Right.
And so that's the thing. But what you really have experienced in a really big way is if you don't understand that nature and you mess with that dynamic balance in the wrong way, you can then make it into like this severe disability, you know, like stuttering or being, you know, severe depression or having so much, you know, fear or anxiety or fear, you know, you can bring that out so much. And that's in everybody to a certain extent, meaning you could be the best version of yourself, which is this incredibly talented, or you could be the worst version, which is this stuttering person who's afraid to leave their house. You know, and but the good news is that by understanding that nature, you can get rid of those vulnerabilities or minimize your vulnerabilities without losing your gift. And that's the point. That's my goal whenever I work with somebody.
It just listening to that, it just blows my mind how just like one small thing that I did like flip-flop my brain long enough to make me into a person where I was so foreign to me. Like I've never stuttered or dealt with like really low self-confidence in the ability to talk. Like that's what I do for a living.
You do, right.
And I shut down. I didn't even want to talk to people because I felt like I was going to sound like an idiot.
Right.
Like it was very jarring, but it's nice to know that, like, I've always known our brain was powerful. Like that's, I think, why we know so little about it is because it's so, you know, like there's not even words to even explain your brain. I mean, like when you think about your brain, you're just like,
yeah,
holy cow, like what's happening at all times. But
And what most people don't realize is how dynamic it is and how that's why we say that even though I worked with her for years on different things and it helped, or anybody, you can throw it out of balance. I mean, if you don't understand the nature of it, you can, you know, throw it out and it can go there and it can get really bad. And that's where That's the point, and that's mental health, and that's when people go into dark depressions or go into bipolar episodes or schizophrenic, psychotic episodes. You know, you can go in and out of that based on what you're doing if you don't understand your own brain and how it works. And the most gifted people are the most vulnerable to those issues. You know, that line, there's a thin line between genius and insanity. What does that mean? That's really the foundation of a lot of my work, is understanding that.
Ain't that the truth? Genius and insanity.
Well, also, because I kind of had a similar situation happen to me recently, which like I know when we hung out recently, I told you I was like taking off from drinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I like fell into this kind of, I feel like it was like sort of a manic episode for like 6 weeks of me having like crippling anxiety. Like the second I woke up in the morning, for hours I would just sit there and I had to like think about every word I said to everyone, and like my OCD was so bad, and oftentimes like it's just bad in general, but like around this time I like couldn't step on cracks on the sidewalk, and then I would have to like go back, like kind of what you were saying when you were younger and stuff. But that, I guess that's the positive thing also why we talk about this on the podcast, because those things happen and then you're like, am I stuck like this forever or whatever? And then, you know, I call him and he kind of gave me, you know, the tools to use that can balance things out. Like just how you were saying that they didn't really maybe know what they were doing at that clinic, so they stimulated the wrong side. You could so easily stimulate the right side and then bring yourself out of those types of things.
Right. So that's the good news.
But I also stopped drinking, so that would just help me out a little bit. But
yeah.
Dynamically,
you can also go get out of that really quickly if you know what you're doing, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're operating at the level that you have to be fully functional at a really high level, you have to really be aware of that and how to be able to manage that.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed, speaking on the alcohol situation, is I cannot smoke pot.
Me neither.
I can't do gummies because it literally makes me the saddest person ever for the next 72 hours after I consume it. Like just bizarre how I could be like having so much fun say like on a Friday night, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I'm just sad. So I realized that. And I think that's been a big thing for me as I've gotten older, is to really pay attention to when I don't feel well. What did I do the couple of days beforehand, whether it just be my mental thoughts or what I physically consumed. Keeping like self-awareness and tabs on that has been a big thing. Because like with alcohol too, I can have one drink and I can have two and not be drunk, but my second drink is going to have lasting effects the next morning. And then it's going to make me feel really bad when I wake up the next day. So just like that's also really helped with my personality as well, is just understanding what makes me tick and what brings me joy and what actually is a joyful thing for a couple of hours, but then takes it away from me the next day.
Yeah. That, speaking of all of that, because you do like perform at such a high level, a lot of times we ask people on here just because like the people watching, I'm sure like are so happy that you're giving all of this information, because there's so many people that probably are aspiring to do what you do and struggle with all the same things. So if there was like, you know, advice that you could give, not to put pressure on you, but, or just like the things that you do or how you've overcome these things and are performing at such a high level while also managing, I don't know, this stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That was a really long question.
I liked it though. For me, I would say my superpower, the thing that gets me through the hard days and the good days, is like I was telling y'all earlier, I'm big on energy. And when I want something in life, I will sit in a quiet space or I'll be driving down the road, but I can visually generate and physically generate the feeling of me being in that moment as if it's happening currently. And I can feel that imaginary energy as if it's real. Because I once read, and I'd love to hear your take on this, but I once read that our brains, they don't necessarily know the difference between a real and an imaginary event. Mm-hmm. And so when I first heard that, I was like, well, I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to get free practice of feeling what that feels like before I've ever been there. And so A lot of people don't know this, but the first time I ever did stand-up was February of last year. And I lied to my agents and told them that I had been doing stand-up. And so they booked me like 5 or 6 comedy clubs, and they were like, "We'll just see how the tickets go." And we sold all the venues out completely, which sounds great in theory.
But you'd never done it
But
before.
you'd never done stand-up before, and you're going to have to go do stand-up for an hour in front of packed comedy clubs. So what I started doing in that moment is imagining me going out in front of these audiences and hearing the laughter and smelling the popcorn and smelling the liquor on the front row and hearing the joy in people's laughs and seeing their face light up, and me having a low, slow heart rate on stage, delivering the jokes, going over each joke in my head. And it was just something where it gave me a lot of peace because my brain had already been there. So it took that uncertainty of that moment and made it feel more certain and made it feel more familiar. And I think the number one thing that we're all afraid of in life is uncertainty, which is why we stay in abusive relationships, which is why we stay at a job we hate, is because even though we don't love the outcome, we're certain that that's the outcome we're going to get every time. And for me, when you can take that layer of uncertainty and you can minimize it and you can make it familiar and you can give yourself certainty in your mind, then when that opportunity presents itself in real life, it's already been played out in your head. And a lot of times it happens the way that it happened in your head, if not better. So I would say a lot of people use the word manifesting, but I would say visualize and really be an energy filler of the things you want in your life before they actually happen.
You are going to be his favorite person after you just said all of
Yeah.
that.
What you said was, because where you started it was you get into the feeling. You know what I mean? It's not just visualizing it, but that you literally able to visualize the feelings and the emotions and even have that, feel like what your body's going to be reacting to. And you are in the end result of where you want to be, not projecting forward like, oh, I hope I'm great when I go up there, and I hope when I walk out there, or I wish people will love me or whatever. You were in that actually experiencing from the end result of how you wanted it to be. And that's really the key to being able to manifest or be able to do something. But, it's not an easy thing to do, to be able to, not a lot of people can do that. A lot of people can't visualize at all.
Yeah.
I've
done that since I was a little girl, of not just visually seeing it, because I went to the sports psychologist when I was a kid, and he was one of the first people to talk about that. But I would just kind of like imagine what it would be like, and it'll be real surface level. And I never could really connect with that, and I don't feel like it really helped me that much in softball. But the moment, and you hit the nail on the head, the moment it changed from being a thought to a feeling is when just about anything I manifest now in life, I know is going to, like, I can say that with certainty. If I manifest it and I can feel it and I'm willing to work for it, there's just this level of certainty. Like I'm gonna have that. And it's not coming from a place of arrogance. I think this is something I think this is something that we all can do, but very little people tap into it. I think it's as given to you as the feeling of love, the feeling of empathy, the feeling of anger, the feeling of joy, the feeling of manifesting, I think is all inside of us. Just some of us believe in it and some of us don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you're saying all that, because I've had specific things like last year there was this there's this venue in New York that it was my life dream to play there my entire life, and I finally played there, and I had visualized it 1,000 times, the exact feeling of being on there. So then when everyone was like, what did it feel like, weren't you scared? I was like, no, I wasn't scared. I've been there 1,000,000 times. Right. But it's funny because I know that I made that happen by visualizing it, but then I fall into these kind of like depressive states where I don't give myself permission to feel that, because I'm like, what makes you deserve to have that feeling if you haven't gotten to that place yet? Then why would you deserve to feel so that good if you haven't gotten there yet. And that's my like internal problem. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, is like just giving themselves the permission to feel something, like to feel like they've done something great before it's happened, you know?
Right.
Which
And
is
it seems like you've gotten past that kind of, which is what I trying to do, but I ebb and flow.
I mean, there's times though. There's
Yeah.
times where, because I am having a mental block, whether it be self-pity or lack of confidence in something or just lack of creativity, I just have a block where I'm not feeling very creative. When I'm not feeling creative, I'm not manifesting, because it doesn't flow together. But when the universe, God, whoever you believe in, drops that into your spirit of creativity, then supercharge it by manifesting while you're feeling very creative, because you're not always going to feel that way. So when you are feeling very creative, use that as an opportunity to also manifest and to believe and to receive, you know?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting because most of what you've talked about that makes you feel better or helps you manage is really a lot of it is engaging your left brain. You've kind of come up with that strategy on your own, like being logical, you know, stepping back, looking at things, you know, without so much emotion, being a little bit more objective. Certainty is a very left brain emotion. The right brain lives in uncertainty. And so, you know, a lot of what you've automatically kind of found on your own is that talk therapy, the engaging that left brain kind of calms down that right a little bit, doesn't take it away for the most part, but you know, you've found those strategies on your own, which is actually really good. It's just a matter of, just like when you learn how to manifest and you know you can do that, you want to be able to say, okay, let me do this all the time, because again, we're always manifesting.
Right.
We're always affecting our brain. You're always affecting your own balance of your brain. You just don't know you're doing it. And if you can now engage it in a way where you know what you're doing, like, you know, okay, I'm feeling this, I need to go do some talk therapy, or I need to like really start looking logically right now, or, you know, start doing some math problems or something, you know, you can just kind of engage it on your own, you know? So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Wow, Danae, you're a genius.
Oh God, they say either genius on the line of insanity, so you never know.
Fine line. No, I'm really appreciative of you being so open about all of this, and thank you so much for
Very
coming on here.
impressive. Everything
Yeah.
about you is so
Thank
impressive.
you.
Really, really.
Thank you.
Such a great example for people out there and other, you know, young women, and it's just great.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. You
Well,
said manifestation. I could feel him just being like, yes.
Oh, I could talk about it for
But you know,
hours.
see, this whole thing, nothing happens by accident. This
No.
isn't like this just happened to you, that you just happen to be born with these great abilities, and you also hone these skills and develop these things, and you made it happen. You created everything in your life, and anybody can do that. And that's kind of what the message is as well. And the more you know, and the more, you know, especially about your brain, the more you can actually do it. And that's kind of what we want to do, is empower everybody to understand you don't need to suffer. You're not broken. You can change it. You just, through knowledge and understanding. But most of what people out there, even the most experts, are telling you is mostly bullshit. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, you know? And so, you know, it's just great because, you know, it gives people that inspiration. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank y'all. Wow, I really adore you both. Absolutely, Ellis. Ever since I met you, I just have to say, like, you've always been just a light and a joy.
Thanks, Danae.
And I adore you, and I can't wait to just keep being friends with you forever. And now I feel like I'm besties with your dad.
You're part of the family.
Or the fam. No, seriously,
Oh.
Thank y'all so much for having me on today.
Thank you, Danae. You're amazing.
Thank
Thank
you
you for being friends with my daughter.
Yeah.
Love her to death.
He keeps paying people. Okay, well, thank you, Danae. This was amazing. And until next time.
Till next time.
Tell me when you're in New York.
Oh, I will, brother.